Welcome to the Connected Teamwork podcast, co-hosted by me, Olena Sergeeva, and Hylke Faber. And this podcast is dedicated to team connectedness and how to make teams high performing and how to make teamwork very satisfying for us. So we believe in connecting right here, right now. So we're gonna do the connectedness practice, which is a check-in where both Hilke and I will take turns answering check-in questions. And the check-in questions we favor are how you feeling, how you growing, maybe what's your current challenge and how you growing, and what's your intentions for today, and what's your intentions maybe for this podcast overall, in case of Hilke, since this is the first time he's joining us on this podcast. So I'll start with the check-in. I'm feeling energized, present, excited about the topic. Um, my growth is my challenge is being thinking too much, I would say, overthinking things. So my growth right now, my focus is on learning to be more present, connected to the energy, connected to the person I'm talking to, and less, in the headspace. My intentions for today is to really explore what are the guiding principles of connected teamwork when you are in doubt or you're facing a difficult, maybe, a confrontational situation. Where do you ground yourself? What should be your guiding principles? So with that, I'm in, and over to you, Hilke.
Welcome, Olena, and welcome, everyone. I am feeling present and grateful and excited to be on this conversation with you on connected teamwork because I see so much possibility in connecting more to who we truly are and connecting to each other. Yesterday, I was in many airports in the Netherlands and then in the US on my way back home. And I was looking at all these people and I was thinking, what would it be like if all these people were even a little bit connected more to each other and themselves than they are? What would be possible? So that's what I'm excited about. My growth is in trusting others. I noticed that I have a tendency to distrust and over engineer and not trust the process, and always look for signals for the next shoe to drop in some way as opposed to trusting. And my intention for this podcast series is that it contributes to people listening, to finding within the wherewithal to connect more deeply to what's true for them, and also to connect more deeply to the people around them in the service of enjoying that and also being more purposeful at work. Over back to you, Elena.
Welcome, Hilke. And when I was thinking about today's podcast, I was reflecting upon my own experience with the teams and what I know about high performing teams. And it's really a huge challenge. There are so many things to consider. You need to have the team that's composed of the members with the right skills and the motivation and the knowledge. And then you want to have a compelling purpose that everyone believes in. And you need to think about how to set up, the processes that are conducive for that purpose, and clear roles. And then there will be some conflicts, and there will be some communication challenges. There are so many things to think about, really. So where do you start? Like, where do you start if you are a team leader for a new team, or you've been moved to another group or something? How do you go about this?
I love that focus because I'm thinking about the teams that I've led or lead and the teams I've supported. And it's almost like feels sometimes like magic. Oh, it's working really well, and there's a sense of flow. And then for whatever reason, there's no flow. The next meeting or in a different team setting or a challenge happens, and like, what happened? So in that situation, I think it's really helpful to have something we can orient ourselves on, which is different from, oh, great, things are not going great, things are going well, or darn, things are not going so well. Yeah, what do you think?
That's I totally agree that, you know, it may change from moment to another moment very quickly, and you may experience the sense of, oh my God, this is not working. This is not going anywhere. You know, I'm on the wrong team, or there is something wrong with me, right? I'm not doing the right things, right? Or he is, or she is,
Mhm.
right? And that's a moment to me of great disconnect,
Mm,
which may also be experienced like almost like an insight. Oh, now I see, I see the reality. It's just all wrong. Nothing is working, right? Um, so what I do, and I would be curious to know what you do, um, is when you experience something like this. What I do is I remind myself that I just need to like stop
mm,
and kind of change the perspective, right? Like take a look from a different perspective. And that perspective for me is a perspective of greater wisdom, right?
mm,
Which
mhm,
sounds fairly abstract, but the way I approach it is um, trusting that everyone has a great intention in their heart.
mm,
And if I take that pause, I'll see that more clearly.
mm. Yes, that resonates with me. That resonates with me. Somebody that has been coaching me since 2003, so that's 20 years. He's 85 years old right now, I think, more or less. And she always asks me this question, which is, what are you unconditionally committed to in this moment? Which means not dependent on what's happening around you. And I love, Olena, what you're saying about even asking that question requires me to pause, and you could say almost take a little vacation from whatever's happening in my brain. It's like, oh, okay. And then there's a bigger perspective that is allowed. And sometimes I have to work harder to enter that different perspective, because my brain, reptilian brain especially, is kind of stuck in, it's never going to work, or I have the solution, or whatever it is, you're wrong or I'm wrong, or whatever it is, right? So to get out of that situation, it really helps me to be very clear about what I focus my intention on, instead of that usually obsessive, controlling, judgmental thinking. So yeah, that's what it works for me. And those three principles that I tend to focus on, that we in GLN focus on, um, we describe as truth, love, and service. And in a team setting, that may sound almost too esoteric. So maybe we spend a little bit of time together unpacking what that means for us. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds very very good, because working for a long time in a corporate setting and consulting the big companies, I know that there are so many nice great words, big big concepts that are all over the place, all over the corporate world, that have created a certain um, cynicism around, like, oh yeah, right, of course, here we go again, corporate values or something like this. So I think it's important to talk about what's behind those words and how to make them real
Hmm.
for yourself.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you make them real?
Well, the first thing to start, I think I would say, um, I would say, let's look at what's not real, right? First,
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to arrive at what's real. And so to me, like what you just described, when you're stuck in obsessive thinking, like fixated on something, worrying about something, or trying to find a solution for something, or being upset about someone behaving a certain way, uh, usually that whole cycle is really exhausting. So
Mm,
you are in the wrong on the wrong side of everything when you like really feeling exhausted day in and day out. You put a lot of hours in, a lot of energy, and you just feel completely burned out. So that's to me is a sign that there is a disconnect with the energy flow. There is a
mm,
disconnect within yourself, and there is a disconnect definitely with the team flow, right?
mm.
So that's the first place to look. And then the second would be, okay, so if that feels so wrong, what's the true thing? What's the right thing? How does this resonate with you,
Yeah,
Hilke?
I'm thinking about a recent experience I had. You and I are part of a team, and sometimes we agree and sometimes we don't, which is one of the things I love from the bigger perspective about working with you. Yeah? And sometimes, you do things where I'm like, why is she doing this? Right. And when I don't talk to you about it, and when my obsessive brain starts to take over, uh, I can keep myself awake at night if it's very extreme. It hasn't happened, but it can, right? Um, I try to force a solution, like I'm just going to do it this way, or I want to do it by myself, and I'm going to already make a whole plan of what I'm going to do by myself. I'm also making plans. That's another thing about obsessing. I'm making plans about how to get out of this. Like the meeting's not going well. Now I'm going to have to find a recipe so that everybody feels better again. Right. So, and it feels also very isolating. Like it's all upon my shoulders. It's all upon my shoulders. So those are some of the things that I relate to when I'm on the, you could say, narrower, more limiting side of my acting as a team leader, and I'm stuck on obsession and I'm not accessing that broader perspective.
Yeah, I'm thinking also that, for me, like planning and writing lots of emails, that's the sign that there is something
Yeah,
narrowing for
yeah,
me, and
yes,
which usually produce a cycle of
yes,
more emails leading nowhere. So what is, the I've heard this before, but I'm curious how you view it. How would you present it to our listeners? Truth, love, and service is these three big guiding principles. What's behind them?
yes. So we start with obsession, and obsession means we're not seeing the whole picture. We're seeing only what our mind comes up with. Truth means I'm allowing myself to relax and allow for a bigger perspective to come in. So let's say I have a difficult team meeting, right? And a person is not delivering, right? My obsessive brain might say, they are not delivering, they should be fired. Or they're not delivering, and this is what I have to do to get them to deliver. And I'm going to say it this way, and then they will say this, and then we get it. I'm an obsession. A more truthful, practicing truth, I first of all question my thoughts. Is it true that they're delivering, or did I set the correct expectation and goal? Right? Is it true that the thought that I have maybe about that they will never deliver? Where am I getting all this stuff? I'm just making some stuff. So I'm questioning myself for truth, so I can get more restored to what I truly value. So another part of being truthful is being grounded in our values. So I value compassion. I value fairness. I value purposefulness. Other values, you could say. I value love, which is the second value that we are using as anchors when we face with challenge to figure out how you build a more connected team. So why talk about love? Well, let's think about the other side of it. Like when our brain is more in survival instinct, it's best to caring and thinking about the broader perspective, we tend to judge. Like we have an image of, like, Elaine is not doing this, therefore she's wrong, right? I feel
There is.
I don't want to appear judgmental, but it's a very long email in which I'm going to prove to you that you're wrong, right? As opposed to coming from a place of love, which includes respect both to you and to me, and becoming very curious about, where is she coming from in this situation? I love what you just said earlier. Is it true that has mal intent? That he has negative intent? She probably wants to be successful, just like I do. Then I relax a little bit.
I have an example that I just thought about. On a team I worked with, one of my direct reports came to me during the break in a workshop setting where we were exploring some of the, like individual values and company values and so on. And she gave me a piece of feedback which was really hurting for me. So it was like something like the decision you made a year ago and the conversation we had about that decision, Olena, really upset me. And she said to me, I'm still hurting from that. You did not see me as a person in that moment. Right. And I was like taken aback. This is the person who is dependent upon me in deciding, whether she deserves a promotion or, gets a bonus or whatever. Right. And the decision that she was referring to, I was perceiving as a sound business decision that she should have just accepted. It was good for the business. What's there to spend time on?
Right.
But that whole conversation to me was such a powerful mm, um, stimulant towards me looking around, looking at other team members, thinking, how do I deliver those decisions, even if they are business decisions, with respect, with trying to understand the other person's perspective? And maybe it's not just about business objectives that those decisions should um, be about, and so on. So that started the whole, reflective process, and me talking to each person, trying to understand more, and kind of putting myself in a much more equal, human to human
Yes.
interaction,
Yeah.
um, which was a big transformational process for me, which started just with one conversation.
I can feel it. And as you're listening to this, as I'm listening, also I'm thinking about when I'm in conflict with somebody, or even when things are not going well. What my ego brain does, obsessive, I separate. Like it's me against the world, the challenge, the thing that has to happen. And now I have to deliver this thing to quickly fix the world, which is that third principle that doesn't work very well, which is control, right? I'm going to quickly control it. As opposed to being caring and almost what I try to do, not try to, what I intend doing is in my mind, I put a hand behind the other person's heart as I talk to them, even if they're online. Maybe try it out sometime when we're thinking about an online meeting. Not gonna like sit like this, not with your hand out, but
Mm.
just in your mind's eye. These things help me to get out of my little cocoon of self obsession. Like, how can I be caring and listen to this person? And even when I have to say something and what you had to tell them was very challenging, Elena, right? How can I say that to them while I have deep care and have a hand behind their heart? That's the second principle. Truth. Ask about myself. What's true here? What are my true values? What are truly important? What's the gobbledygook that my mind comes up with? How can I free myself from that? And then coming from a deep place of love, care, respect, seeing the other person's perspective. And then it doesn't stop there, because there's also something about putting ourselves in service. Now, there's things we get to do. There's a reason we're on the team, and every team has a purpose. And the challenge I find in even doing this work of becoming more honest, truthful, more respectful, loving, is that it can feel so good doing all this sharing that we can become a therapy group. Well, that's great, as a therapy group is, but that's not the purpose. So how can we still stay of service of what we're here to accomplish, whatever that is, the goal that we're supposed to accomplish? And I like the word service because it has a quality of serving and humility to it, versus control, where I think I'm going to control some kind of outcome, and if it happens I'm happy, and if it doesn't happen I'm unhappy and I'm demotivated. As opposed to service is something that I can always inhabit. I can always live in service. That's a choice I can make. Goes back to unconditionality again in building teams. How do you see that third word,
So
service? I'm
to me,
curious.
service is a lot about focus, like clarity of goals, in really simple terms. And once that clarity exists, is just keeping focus, coming back to that in every single meeting. How does what we do right now is helping us to serve that purpose? How is, let's say, how are the metrics we're tracking are helping us to serve that purpose? How is meetings we're planning this week? Are they related to this purpose, or we're just doing them because there are so many, I don't know, interesting partners that we could work with, or we just decided that we need to go through this very long and complicated process of, I don't know, feedback given, not because it's serving the purpose of alignment, but just because there is a, I know, corporate procedure that we have to follow and so on, right? So
Yeah.
it's just keeping the focus on what's really important in terms of the group purpose, what takes priority.
Yes.
um, so that's something, and there is a lot of work to be done around that. And these big principles are really significant when it comes to like a conflicting interests, or I don't know, scary situations or something, or really big challenges that have no easy solution. So maybe, Helga, if you have an example that you could give, just to illustrate when you evoke these principles, or maybe from your consulting practices,
Yeah.
when the team should evoke these principles, um, in those type of challenging situations.
Yeah. Yeah. So to me, there's always time and space for truth, love, and service. There's never not a time for it. It's and as you are suggesting, Olena, and it really helps to think about in what situations becomes it even more important. And in these connected teamwork podcasts, we're going to describe, you could say, easier moments. We call them white belt moments. Middle difficulty moments, which we call green belt moments, and then black belt moments, which are like really hard, like a person's getting hurt, or there's feedback that a conflict that needs to happen, or a person needs to leave the team, or there's layoffs, or what have you. Like, and each of those three different situations require a different level of intensity of focus, you could say, on those principles. Now, to make it very specific, let me pick a green belt moment, right? So when, for example, a team decides to give feedback to each other, that's a green belt moment from my perspective. A green belt moment from my perspective. So it's kind of in the middle of difficulty. It's very important to me that we're grounded in truth, not in our projections, that we're grounded in care for each other, not in judging the other. Like, we're in this conflict and I'm finally going to tell you what I really think about. No. How can I help you grow to your next level? And then service. What's this feedback and service of? Is it my ego agenda, or is it your growth and the growth of this team? So that might be a challenge that
Mhm.
I would really invite a person and a team to think about it. And I invite team leaders and team members to think about this every day if they can. Like, what are your principles that you are grounding yourself in, as opposed to the stuff that your ego tells you should be doing and pursuing, which gets you ungrounded?
Yeah. Or sometimes we have bad models in front of us. Sometimes you had a boss that was, throwing papers in your face. So you learn that that's the way to treat people and so on. So we just copy. That's what I discovered in my experience. I copied a lot when I was a young manager, and then when you become more mature, you start to question that. Is that really the way you want to be, or is that really the grounding principle you want to aspire? I was also lucky to have some absolutely exceptional managers and leaders in my life, so I could ask myself, what would this person do in this challenging situation? And that helped me to resolve the dilemma.
I love that question. What would this person that I admire do?
Yeah.
It really helps me to lift out of my, by definition, because I'm coming up with a limited and therefore limiting perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm would like to, move towards the finish with the specific practice that we want to offer as our weekly Team Connect practice after each episode. And for this episode, what we would like to suggest is for you to think about a specific challenge that you face right now with the teamwork. It may be a misunderstanding between a few team members. It may be a lack of agreement around direction. It may be something else, but it has to be relevant. It has to be something that you're facing right now with your team. And just consider this challenge from two different perspectives. Like, first, look at it from a perspective of um, distrust and obsession and judgment and control. Just allow yourself to look at this and kind of feel what would you think about and how would you react and behave, and how would others behave if that was the main, let's say, team energy, right? So just allow yourself to travel there and look at what's going to happen. And then, in a moment, look at it from a different perspective. Look at how this challenge um, would look if you allow yourself, first of all, to breathe deeply, and then perceive it from your heart, like with the eyes that are somewhere in your heart, and look at it from a perspective of truth, love, and service. Like, what's really true, what's really important right now, what will be loving and serving in this context, and how can you share that energy with the others. So that's our recommended practice for the week, and we want to finish each meeting also, just like we suggest for each team meeting that you're gonna have with your team, was a little checkout. And the checkout may be, what are your takeaways, what are the things you're gonna be thinking about, or action steps. So let's check out, Hilke, and I'll let's take a moment first. And my checkout for me will be to not to allow myself to get consumed by passions when they, arise from a conversation or a team meeting or external meetings and so on. and sort of run with that, but instead take a pause and ask myself, what will be true, what serves truth, love, and service in this situation.
Thanks, Olena. My checkout is that I'm going to practice seeing the positive, really caring intent in everyone that I meet. Even if that person, from my perspective, is not aware of it. That's only my perspective. I am going to assume it and have fun with it. And I really appreciate being in this reflective space with you, Olena, and with everyone who's listening now or at some time in the future.
Thank you, Hylke. So this was Connected Teamwork Podcast, and we're looking forward to seeing you next Monday at noon PST. Goodbye.